I think it was some like socially conscious vigilante hacker guy.
I live for this type of scandal, to be honest.
Alright guys, so I did go see the Happytime Murders. Actually a movie, I wasn't a huge fan of the trailer, but ever since I heard about this concept, I've always been into this concept, you know, this fucked up concept of a R-rated Muppet movie, basically. And this movie is directed by Brent Henson, who is the son of Jim Henson, and it's nice to see that the Jim Henson company is behind this movie, because they do have experience with puppets, of course, with the Muppets and all that. And so the Happytime Murders, we basically have a detective Phil Phillips, who is basically witnessing a bunch of murders, and all these puppets being murdered are crew members of the Happytime gang, and which is a TV show from like the 80s, and of course his brother ends up being one of the victims. Of course, this leads him to investigate who is the one doing all these murders, and he is basically forced to team up with Melissa McCarthy to basically solve the case of this movie. Again, Happytime Murders, a very unique concept, although it is a buddy cop comedy, and we have a ton of those, and basically this is just like every other buddy cop comedy, except you do have the addition of the puppets. So it should be a pretty fun ride, right? Not exactly, but kinda. This movie isn't exactly as terrible as people are making it out to be. Like, basically the whole movie community is just shitting on this movie, and I just don't exactly see why. But I do see why this isn't really that great of a movie either. Now, it is a bit disappointing to say that, because again, I do like the concept, but this movie just tried way too hard, not just with the comedy, but with the actual raunchiness itself. Of course, by raunchiness, I'm really talking about them really giving out these offensive jokes, which I'm not offended by, but they're just trying way too hard with these jokes. And of course, that puppet sex scene, which was really awkward to watch, very uncomfortable. It went on way too long, and you know, it's scenes like that kind of drag down this movie for me. And you know, I've always liked the idea of, you know, how about we take a kid-friendly object and, you know, turn it into an R-rated movie. You know, this is an example of that. Sausage Party is an example of that. But you know, both of those movies are not that great examples of what that really should be. A good example of taking a kid-friendly object and, you know, turning it into a R-rated feature-length film is the Ted movies, which I think are very underrated movies. And I think that this movie should have gone a little bit more in terms of not just the quality, but in terms of comedy and raunchiness. I think that the Happytime Murders should definitely went along the road of the first Ted movie. And because just a lot of jokes in this movie don't exactly work. Like, jokes in this movie are a hit or miss. There are a lot of jokes where I just not find funny at all. But there are a handful of jokes that I did laugh at and I did find myself enjoying. And not only that, but the writing to this movie is okay. There is some okay dialogue, some not so okay dialogue. And but this movie is just flat out pretty predictable. Halfway through the movie, you basically know who's the one doing these crimes. Although you didn't, I guess that twist towards the end of the movie should have been nice for you. I will say the way it was portrayed on screen was pretty unique. Just that the fact that it was pretty predictable didn't really make it any better. But you know, the performances in this movie I thought were actually kind of enjoyable. Of course, Melissa McCarthy, she's a hit or miss now and then, and I thought she was actually pretty likable in this movie, and she did have some funny moments. Elizabeth Banks, I think that, I don't know, I just don't know, she didn't have that big of a role in this movie. Maya Rudolph was a pleasure to see in this movie. And you know, we do have a lot of other comedians that kind of make cameos in this movie, and they're entertaining. But other than that, Happytime Murders is nothing too special. Like, there are some very creative moments that they did with some of the action scenes in this movie, because again, it's basically a Muppet movie, and seeing some of the action scenes with Muppets in it are pretty unique. But there are scenes where, you know, this movie just tries way too hard on what it's trying to do, and it slows down the movie a bit, and it just kind of makes the movie boring at times. But the Happytime Murders is still not a terrible movie. People are just exaggerating way too much when it comes to their opinions in this movie, but it's not really a great one either. I would recommend waiting for Redbox or Netflix to watch this movie. With that being said, I'm gonna give the Happytime Murders a C. But yeah, guys, have you guys seen the Happytime Murders? Have you guys seen it? What did you guys think about it? Tell me in the comment section below. As always, thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.